Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this university update for October 2016, where we look at how is the university getting on, what are our successes, what are our challenges, how do we compare. I had an interesting experience, a somewhat disturbing experience, as I was driving to work this morning. It wasn't the sudden downpour of rain before I got to the car. But I was driving along and I pulled up at the lights and there was this very nice looking late model car beside me, and I looked out my passenger window at the side of the car and there was emblazoned on the side of it, the University of Canterbury. Well, that was bad enough, but when I got up to the lights in Simon Street, there was another car beside me on the other side and it said the University of Waikato. Now I thought, I hadn't gone down Queen Street because I didn't want to see the biggest university sign in New Zealand, which is the University of Otago on Queen Street. But anyway, as I drove down Simon Street, on my right was Massey House. And then, of course, there was the enormous University of Auckland as I turned down Wellesley Street. So we're in a competitive situation here in Auckland, where one university of many, all of the universities want to have something going on in Auckland because by accident we happen to have the prime growth spot. So how are we getting on with that competition? How are we getting on with students choosing to come to us rather than all the other options they've got? And this is a graph of our total EFTs for all courses, all levels. And you'll see there that the University of Auckland, A, is at the top, and then AUT is second, with a widening gap from Otago and Massey University. So that means that we are continuing to have an increasing number of students from the total market pool who are choosing to come to AUT. And I got some interesting information from the Scholarships Office earlier this month, and there was a bit of a panic because we had to turn down a whole lot of scholarship applicants who had the top GPA grade that they put in to compete for a scholarship. So more and more top students were wanting to come to AUT from all over the country. So that's a good sign. At our South Campus, which is quite important, and I'll come back to this later, you can see that we're growing strongly there. And that's important for our future in terms of our EFTS funding. And you'll see that the headcount is a lot more than the EFTS. That's partly because some students only do a semester there, so they only count as half an EFT. But there's a lot of students going through there and an increasing number in this new initiative. The South Campus is located in a region of Auckland which is as big or bigger than Christchurch. It is the youngest population centre in the country, and it is the fastest growing. And more important than that, it has the only growing population of under 35-year-olds anywhere in the country, with the exception of some other smaller regions in Auckland. So it's a great place to have a university, and that's part of the reason why we're continuing to grow, because we're locating where the growth population and emerging market is. What about postgraduate students? Because a university really is successful mostly at its postgraduate end in terms of reputation, innovation, research, and international recognition. And our postgraduate numbers are increasing very well again. The graph here, the white band is AUT. That's the one that's going up, along with the middle blue band and the top one. The top one is the University of Auckland. There's 3 universities there that have way more postgraduate EFTs than we do. It's a little bit misleading because those universities all happen to have huge numbers in degrees that have a terminal year in honours, so that the whole degree from level 5, the first year, right through to level 8, the last year, is regarded as postgraduate. So all of those EFTs that otherwise would be classed as undergraduate are postgraduate. So at Auckland, it's engineering, Canterbury, it's engineering, and some other things, and Massey, It's a strange degree. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's got thousands of people in it. So comparing with normal universities, we're doing pretty well. AUT, Victoria and Otago about equal, and though you can't see it on that graph, AUT has more postgraduate Fs than either Victoria or Otago, just by a smidgen. This is the increase in postgraduate Fs, and the tall graph is Auckland, the white one is AUT. So you can see that we're competing very well at that level also. PhD Fs, the terminal, the top qualification that a student can get, again, AUT is doing pretty well. We're the second biggest university, but we're not the second biggest with PhD enrolments. This year we have more than 800 individual PhD students. That breaks down to less Fs than that because they start and finish at different times in the year. Next year, we estimate that Canterbury and Victoria won't change much, but we will go up by a number to become the bigger than Canterbury and Victoria at postgraduate level. So we're growing at all of the levels that we want to grow at as a university. How are we recognised? Now, you will have heard some news about our international rankings, and it's a great story. We moved in the QS rankings from 471 to 480 band to 441 to 450. A Herald reporter, probably trained at the University of Canterbury, calculated that that meant we'd gone up 60 places, but not quite. It would have been good if we had. But it means we're in the top 50 now, top 450 now, not the top 500. And that still leaves us in the top 3% of the world's universities. Just going, sorry, whizzing through here. Just going back to that one for a moment. We're still the bottom of the New Zealand universities. So while we're doing well, we've still got a long way to go in comparison with the recognition of other universities. However, we are in a better place than half of the universities in Australia, more than half of the universities in the UK, and half of the universities in Canada. So we're not doing too badly internationally compared with universities in countries that we might compare ourselves with often. In the Times Higher Education rankings, we've gone up from being in the top 800 to being in the top 600, which is quite a move. And in the world rankings for international outlook, according to Times Higher Education, we are still in the top 20. So international outlook looks at our student population, our staff population, for the number of international people in those two groups. And it also looks at the proportion of our research outputs that have a co-author who's international. So that gives an idea of our international partnerships and international connections in research. We have, I think, sorry. Yeah, you will have seen all these before. Sorry, where are we? Yeah, you will have seen all these before, but it's good to just remind ourselves that a number of our subjects now are world ranked. And that's the way that QS describes them. It doesn't matter exactly where you are. They have a grouping of universities where the particular subject puts them in a world ranking position. And the number that you have to be at for each subject changes slightly depending on how big the subject is across the university world. So they're very good. We'd like to be world ranked, of course, in nearly all of our subjects. So we've got a long way to go. These are big subject areas for us, but we've got more that we could do. And we need to focus on how do we move some of our subject areas up into that rating. We get 5 stars for a lot of important things. Overall, the university only gets 4 stars, and that's because we only get 2 stars for research and innovation. So this is a challenge for us as a new university. I think I skipped over a slide that had where we were in the under 50-year-old universities. People who look at these things think that a young university is a university that's less than 15 years old. So we're less than 20 years old. I think we're in the top 60 for universities under 50 years old. But one of the things that holds a young university back in terms of its big ranking is research and innovation, the ability to get money and students at the top level to support research and innovation, and academic staff. The older universities with reputation, with big endowments, they do much better. But we've got to move up. And so one of our focuses for the next few years will continue to be improving our research, doing more research, more people doing research, doing more research that has impact, research that is noted by industry or for its innovation and commercialization, but also research that is published in top journals that gets cited a lot. They're the sorts of things that we need to be looking to. But most of all, it's about more people doing research and looking to how to improve the quality and the impact of their research. So all of our schools, all of our institutes, the university at large needs to be thinking about how do we do that? How do we make research more invitational? How do we include people in it? How do we make sure that we're operating academic communities that are research active at every level? Those are the sorts of things we need to be thinking about in order to become a 5-star university on these QS star ratings. We have had some research successes recently, and just a few of them, a selection from many, indicate that we've got the potential to do top stuff. We have 2 sports science researchers in the last couple of months that were awarded the top international award in their field. Sort of a one-off place and something that's awarded only once a year, and 2 of our sports scientists were awarded those awards in their particular fields. We got our first MBIE Smart Ideas grant. All the universities except one got one of those grants this round. AUT was in for the first time, and that was a great success. We also were investigators in other people's grants that were successful. So while we got $1 million from that, we got about $3.5 million altogether by being collaborators, partners in other people's proposals. 2 staff received Health Research Council 25-year celebration awards. The Health Research Council is 25 years old. They made some awards, and 2 of our staff received those awards for their contribution to health research over the years. And one of our PhD students came 3rd in the International Falling Walls competition, which is an interesting competition. As you might guess from the name, started off in Berlin, where the wall fell. And so they seek, well, the group running this seek to recognize work that is going on from students, innovators, young researchers around the world that will change the way the world develops. And our student came 3rd in one of those competitions. So that was a great success as well. And we launched a major research entity which has partners across the universities, across industry, and looks at the really hot topic field of big data and how we use it, how we analyze it, how we move it, how we store it, all of the ways that big data is of interest at the moment with needed developments and innovations. So that's a very big project that has the possibility to receive significant government funding and possibly be recognised in ways like perhaps becoming a core or a centre of research excellence. And already this year we've increased our external research income over last year's total, and that continues to go up. So congratulations to everybody that's been involved in those research successes and the many others that I haven't had time to go through. Student experience has been a big thing this year. It's something that people from across the university have been focusing on, and this just shows a shot, albeit in the distance, of the Southern Voices Choir, which is one of the things that has developed that students can participate in on campus at the Southern campus. You will have seen the Southern Voices Choir if you came to graduation, and they did an outstanding performance there. All of them students at the South campus whether they were the soloists in the choir or just participants, with a magical sound at an international standard. So it's great to have student experiences, student opportunities to participate with one another outside of the classroom in things that add value to life on campus. That's just one. There have been many others. The development of our University Challenge team involved hundreds of students during the early rounds and produced a great team in the end. I can't tell you that the competition's already gone on. I don't know if anybody watched University Challenge last time round, but it was really embarrassing if you're from AUT. I mean, I was watching, I wanted to poke my eyes out so that I didn't see another minute of it. Apparently this time it will not be embarrassing to watch. I don't know where we've come, but apparently it won't be embarrassing at all if you're associated with AUT, so do look out for that. But that was another experience. The actual television show is only a small part of the value of that, but giving students the opportunity to interact in a way that builds up their social networks, their interest in knowledge, that's all a great thing to have at a university. So student experience is something that students have said to us in the past, AUT's not great at that. We need more on-campus experiences, more student life. And I know there's a lot of people in the university now that are working hard to bring that about. They're just a couple of recent examples. We've had some great work done by people from all over the university, and I'd like to pick out one activity that involves so many people from AUT. Hundreds of staff participated, and that was AUT Live. Now, we don't know what impact that's had on our recruitment yet. It may have had no impact. It may have had a big impact. It certainly won't have had a negative impact. And what it's done for all of the people involved and all of the thousands of people who came, apparently 10,000 people were there, is the best estimate we have, it gave a great impression of the breadth, the vibrancy, the dynamism, the people-centeredness of AUT. So thanks to everybody who participated in AUT Live, and I think we should congratulate the people that conceived it and put it together so effectively, and then broke it down so quickly so that when we came to work on Monday, the university was back to normal, except for one thing. We all felt better about AUT. Resources are always an issue for a university, and we're not a particularly rich university. I've just come back from Sydney, where I visited the University of Technology, Sydney, and Sydney University, and boy, was I jealous. They have got so much money to spend on so many things. But we have to be careful with our money and make sure that we get the best results from it. So in the resources space, I can tell you that all of our building work, which council, the executive team, other people, estates, faculties have decided important building works, all of those at the moment are on track. So the MH building at South Campus will open towards the end of this year to be fitted out by us, so all the furniture and the IT can go in, and it will be ready for students at the beginning of next semester. So that's a great achievement. That building will transform the campus. Anybody that's had the privilege of seeing it, even in a half-finished state, will be impressed by the scale, the range of spaces, the connections that it's got, and the change to the image of the campus and the profile of the campus that it produces. We've also got great work going on now out of the ground, out of the mud, with the ETD building up on St Paul's Street, up in the corner of St Paul's and Simon Street. That is another fabulous facility that will transform the experience of students, of staff, of researchers, of industry partners with our engineering and computer science and mathematical sciences and some design. So that's a great facility that will go up, and it will have common areas as well that draw the public in. There'll be a cafeteria that opens on from Simon Street and other spaces that students from that part of the campus will be able to use and engage with their colleagues in engineering, computing and mathematical sciences. The 2017 budget process is underway. And that's always interesting, although over the years nothing has changed that much with our budgets. We haven't gone to a zero budget review or anything like that. But what I can say is that the budget will be based on some growth. So this was a big issue for the TEC because they didn't want to fund growth at any university. They didn't want to fund growth here, but they did want us to carry on growing at South Campus, which was a bit of a problem. So we have now managed to convince them to fund us for growth, and so they'll be funding us for at least 2% growth, and that allows us to continue growing at South Campus and across the university, because the way that we grow at South Campus is sometimes by moving some programs there that will become based there, leaving spaces in other parts of the university for growth to occur. Growth isn't the only thing that's important in a university, but for us it is important because it does allow us to develop our resource base. It allows us to have better facilities for student learning, for libraries, better facilities and equipment for research, all of those things, better systems for administration and academic management. All of those things, for us, rely on growth. If we don't grow, we'll be stuck in the same place, resource-wise. So growth is important, and we're on track to do that next year. During our budgeting process, there's always a bit of concern about some things. We need to keep staff costs at no more than 60% of all of our costs. And the reason for that is because we have a whole lot of other things that we have to pay for. We have to pay for rent on buildings that we rent. We have to pay for consumables in our classrooms and our administration processes. We have to pay for leases for IT systems. We have to pay for travel when staff travel overseas to conferences or for their research. We have to pay for all sorts of things that are obvious and some things that aren't obvious. And one of those things is depreciation. Now, those of you that are accountants will know about this, so please don't put your hand up and tell me that I've got it wrong. But depreciation is the cost of facilities running down. So when we build a new building, we have to put aside around about 3% of the cost of that building every year in our operating expenses to allow for the fact that it's worth less, might require repairs, it might require parts of it rebuilding. So you put aside money for that, and that becomes a cost in your accounts. You still have the money, but you've had to register it as a cost. So at the end of the year, when we add up our depreciation and the money that we didn't spend for operating expenses, the surplus, we have quite a lot of money. And I'll come back to what we might do with that in a minute. Another thing that's a little bit mysterious sometimes are corporate contributions. Now, those of you who are not in faculties will love corporate contributions. Those of you who are in faculties will think that they're a little bit questionable. So the corporate contribution is the amount of money that we take from a school or a faculty to support the central functions of the university. Now, they don't just support the Vice-Chancellor's office and the IT systems and all of those sorts of things that we know are at the centre of the university. They also pay for our property costs. So corporate contributions pay for all of the costs of building, maintaining buildings, cleaning them, paying for the electricity, paying for the water we use. All of those costs come from the corporate contribution. And they represent about 15% of the total expenditure of the university. So when you're paying a corporate contribution from your school, it doesn't all go to the people who are working at the centre of the university. Some of it is for the things that are being used directly in the school. Depreciation and surpluses. Just before we go on to that, the surplus is what's left over, obviously, at the end of the year. And we are required to make a surplus of between 3 and 5%. Somebody from business told me that that was rubbish. You know, we should be sort of getting 10 to 15%. But a university isn't here to pay anybody a dividend. So we like to spend as much of the money that we get as we can on fabulous support teaching, learning support for students, and fabulous research. So we're a spending machine in a way, we're not a profit machine. But we have to keep a certain amount there to make sure that we don't overspend each year and gradually become insolvent. So what do we do with the depreciation and the surpluses? Well, they fund research equipment and other equipment that we need in the university. They fund library resources, IT system improvements, minor capital works when you want something changed in your school or your division. That comes from the surpluses and depreciation, new builds, and repayment of debt. And so there's a lot of money that's tied up in depreciation and surpluses, but it gets used up pretty quickly. Now I've got debt there. Why do we have debt? We have debt so that we can build our buildings and improve the quality of the experience of working and learning here in the same way that people have a mortgage to improve their houses. The staff engagement survey was something that we did this year. We try and do it every 2 or 3 years. The last one was in 2013. There's been little change in the reporting back from staff since 2013 in the survey, which gives us a stable picture of the working environment here at AUT. And we still compared favourably with benchmark organisations. So these are other big organisations that the same survey company works for with their engagement surveys. We were doing well, according to the survey. Staff found a sense of growth and development at AUT for themselves as individuals. It was a place where you could develop your skills, you could explore new areas, you could be involved in learning yourself as a worker here. There was a sense of autonomy and achievement. People could make some of their own decisions. There was the opportunity to achieve something and be recognised for that. There was a sense of camaraderie and belonging. People particularly spoke well of the teams that they were in and their work colleagues. So one of the top reasons that people had for enjoying work at AUT was the people that they worked with. The sense that AUT has a positive and inclusive culture and cares about the well-being of its people was something that increased since the last survey. So that was a good thing. And as we become more international, as we recognise the importance of acknowledging diversity, that's something that we hope continues to rise in the experience that people report in the survey. The areas that we needed to improve were in planning and action. A lot of people felt that our policies and practices did not align well with our strategies and plans. So we were doing things that weren't helping us get to the right place. In fact, we were doing some things that stopped us doing what we'd said we wanted to achieve. Connection between leaders and frontline staff was another area where we needed to improve, and this came up in the last survey as well. So there was a feeling that more open two-way communication with frontline staff was required, more involvement in decision-making, more and better timely messaging around directions and changes. So these were all areas where staff felt that the university had fallen down and could do much better. And the last area that came out strongly was the need for a sharper focus on achievement. Now, people felt that they could achieve themselves, but there was a feeling that perhaps the university wasn't achieving as well as it could because it didn't focus on achievement and deal with problem areas where there was poor performance. And the feeling was that we just let that go or we left that. So there are 4 things that we need to do something about, and we want action in divisions and also at university level. Now, we don't know exactly what those actions should be. Some things are starting to develop as being the ideas for going forward on those issues, but we do want this to be discussed at division level, at faculties and in administrative departments and areas, so that we can get more information about what we should be doing together to get a better sense of engagement and success and enjoyment in the workplace. What's changing about universities? You might have heard in the news, although the Minister of Tertiary Education tried to suppress it, that there was the Productivity Commission had issued a draft report on tertiary education. And that was looking at what should change in tertiary education. And it had a lot of interesting ideas in it. One of them was that we should get rid of QAP. I don't know whether the academics here would think that was a good idea or a bad idea. It certainly takes up a lot of time. The feeling was that universities should just set their own standards. There was a feeling that there should be no barrier to entry to becoming a university. If you wanted to call yourself a university, you should just be able to set up, put university on the gate, and there you are. There was a feeling that students should have the ultimate choice. Rather than the university getting money when a student enrolls, the student should be given $45,000 and told to go and find their tertiary education and use that to pay for it. So there were lots of interesting ideas in that report, and you might want to have a look at it. The reason why it's there at all is because all over the world, people are puzzling over what should universities be like in the changing world. What should they be focusing on? Should they be focusing on employment for their students? Should they be focusing on commercialization and innovation? Should they be focusing on coming up with new ideas? What is it that they should be focusing on? And so that's something that nobody's got the answers for, but everybody's asking questions about. And that's the same in New Zealand. And I think we can see already that some things are more important than they used to be, according to commentators, politicians, and people in the street. And one of them is employability of students. So that rather than thinking, well, once the students have gone, it's their own business, universities are being asked to say, well, what skills have you given your students in order to get employment, to find employment, to perhaps make employment if they've got an entrepreneurial spirit. The other area that people are thinking is important for universities is to be engaging with industry and enterprise around them, to be making a contribution to the economic and social development of the communities that they're sitting in and are supporting them, rather than just to be the ivory tower, which I don't think universities have been for a long time, but a lot of people who commentate think that they're talking about universities as they were 50 years ago. So the world is changing, and another way the world is changing, we see at AUT every day just by walking through any of our public areas, and that is the mixing of the world of people outside their traditional boundaries and countries. So at AUT here we have 141 countries represented in terms of where students were born. Students were born in 141 different countries in the world. A few years ago, that wouldn't have been the case at all. You would have gone to a university, probably in New Zealand, it would be full of white faces, people that were born here. That's not the case now. So we need to understand how to work with that, what are the benefits and advantages from that. And the other way around, rather than people just coming in, of course our students will want to be global citizens. It's so much easier to move around the globe than it was. And they'll want to be able to have the cultural intelligence, the confidence, the experience to be able to go anywhere in the world and do work, engage in ways that uses their skills. So that's what's changing about universities, or just a quick summary. How do we keep up? And where can we lead? And I think where can we lead is an important thing for us to keep in mind, because a lot of those changes actually speak to what traditionally made us different from the other universities in New Zealand, but now makes us possibly a leader. So if I went to the University of Auckland, I might hear the Vice-Chancellor say something like, you know, if I was a parent, and I found out that the teachers at university weren't trained in teaching, I'd want to know why. Because I want my child to have an excellent experience here that equips them with something that they can take away. Now, that's Stuart McCutcheon talking. He's the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Auckland. He said that recently at a public meeting. The Vice-Chancellor of the University of Otago, our oldest university, a strong research university with an international reputation, she said at the same public meeting, first and foremost, we're a school that has to look after the interests of our students, both in the campus, on the campus, and beyond the campus when they leave. So these are some shifts that are going on in the thinking about universities, not just here, but everywhere. Everywhere is setting up opportunities for students to try out their entrepreneurial skills, their entrepreneurial ideas. Everybody is setting up research arrangements that connect with industry more than just granting agencies. So everybody's doing these things. We need to make sure that we keep doing them because we've been good at them in the past, and we need to keep on being good at them and getting better and better at them. So what are we going to do to explore these things? Well, first of all, AUT Directions consultation is going to be something that happens in the next few weeks or so. Now, AUT Directions is a working title of our new strategic plan. And a consultation draft is being prepared, which will go out to everybody in the university, and then there'll be opportunities to get together with other people and talk about it, criticise it, add suggestions to it, respond to it in some way, or to do that online or in other ways. So Strategy and Planning Division will be working that out with our communications people, and you'll hear more about that shortly. But that's an opportunity to think about how does AUT keep up with the changes that are happening, and where can it lead? Some of the areas that are important that we are working on already are things like employability and learning. So there are co-curricular activities students can participate in employability, like Match Ready. There's our employability team. There's learning that happens in an employment situation, so students understand not just the acquisition and advancement of knowledge, but its application in real situations with student projects, work-integrated learning papers. These are things that we have to give real emphasis to and strong quality in. We've set up a new division, PVC for Student Success and Student Experience and Success. And the aim of this division is to explore things that we can add to the university, co-curricular things, perhaps new qualifications, new papers, new student services, that will expand the opportunities for our students and improve the university's connection with the changing world through our students. So you'll hear more about that. The PVC for Student Experience and Success is Desna Jury, who just relinquished the Deanship in Design and Creative Technologies. So that's something to watch out for, and perhaps to see how you might be able to contribute to some of the work that will be going on there. AUT schools are our real centres of academic endeavour, of teaching, of learning, of research, of innovation. And at the moment, we have our schools a little bit buried in what we call our faculties, and we need to lift them out of that and give them profile, give them recognition, and think about what are the characteristics that we want our schools have, so that they can be better places for staff to engage in research and develop their expertise, better places for staff to be able to teach students, to supervise, better places for an academic community to develop, one of scholarship and inquiry, one of curiosity, one where knowledge is advanced and talked about, one where graduate students, postgraduate students feel they're part of the academic community. So our schools are going to have a stronger profile and a different place in the university in the future. In our research work, we're starting to develop stronger engagement with government and industry in research and consulting. And that is a way that AUT can perhaps compete better with other universities than just going through the traditional contestable grants process. We are good at relating, and government likes us for obvious reasons. And so talking to government about can we have support for this research work, or what can we do to support you, is going to get us a long way more quickly than just going through the traditional approaches. We don't want to ignore the traditional approaches, however, but add that to it. We need to explore how to better our teaching, how to better use learning technology, how to explore how we can develop our teaching and learning processes and environment. And that's something that will be a focus. We've already had some staff go through one avenue of doing this with the Akwa Aranui program, which allows people to be recognised and gain a fellowship from the Academy of Higher Education. Diversity and international experience I've already talked about. We do want our students to have the opportunity to have international experiences in all sorts of different ways. So that when they leave here, they've had more chance of seeing the world, seeing how their particular area of interest operates in another part of the world, and gaining more cultural intelligence that enables them to interact with people from more places. We've adopted the United Nations Sustainability Goals, and we want to be a university that contributes to the issues of sustainability that the world is facing, that are widely acknowledged, climate change and others. And we need to do that as researchers, we need to do it as innovators, we need to do it as teachers, and we need to do it as a large corporate organisation that builds a lot of buildings, that produces a lot of waste, that uses a lot of energy. So, that's something about the future, and I think we have some time for questions. I'm happy to take any question. I'm not happy to guarantee that I know the answer to every question, but I'm sure that if I don't, somebody here will. Doesn't look like there are any questions, but there are. I can tell you there are. We're going to stay here until we get one. See, there is one.
I need to go, so I'm going to ask a question. Can we go back to your first slide?
Yes.
The problem with your first slide to me was it doesn't actually give us any indication of why we're successful or where we're successful. Because what it says is that successful universities in terms of growth are in the Auckland market. And both universities are growing at the same rate. So it doesn't give you a good handle on, what we're doing better than them or what we're doing better than anybody else. It just says, you're lucky, you're in Auckland.
Well, I guess we could be in Auckland and still not be growing and still not be attracting students, but we're not. We are attracting students faster than the University of Auckland, and that might be because we're more accessible. It might be because we've got a focus on different markets. For example, our South Campus. It might be because we're a sharp and vibrant and interesting institute in the marketplace with a growing reputation. You might have some different ideas.
No. I'm not a mathematician, but that graph seems to show we're growing at the same sort of rate.
Well, no, I mean, it's a very flat graph, like this is AET, it depends where you draw the line, doesn't it? We know from the TEC that the University of Auckland has not grown this year, and AUT last year was the only university that grew. And I think you can see that on the graph. The University of Auckland stayed the same, and so did all these other universities, or they got smaller. Tony. Yes. And that is a significant issue. Well, Tony's asked, I think the cost of living for students has started to become exorbitant. And we need to think about how do we deal with that? How do we support students? We do have some student support services for those in financial difficulty, but often people get turned off or they leave before accessing those services, or the services haven't got sufficient to provide them with what they need. There's another thing that QS does is they do the best student cities in the world, and AUT is in the 17th best student city in the world in Auckland, and that rates really highly on all the criteria until you get to cost of living for students, and then it plummets down below New York, London, and various other very expensive cities. So it's not just housing that's the problem, it's the cost of everything, the cost of transport, the cost of food. All of those things are high in Auckland compared with other places. So that is an issue, and I'm not sure what we do about that. That's something we've got to work with government and local government on tackling. Robert. Well, yeah, I think on the one hand, you could justifiably say that a university is not an employee mill. We're not here just to produce employees for the current businesses that are there, and that we hope to offer our students a lot more than just the basic skills you need to get a job. But I think if you asked students, most of them would expect that coming to university was going to improve their chances of having a good career, their chances of engaging in enterprise, their chances of being a successful person in a world that does rely on employment for success. So I think it's essential that we provide that. It's essential that we do give every opportunity to our students to improve their employability skills and to learn in a way that does connect in some way with the world of enterprise and employment. And we wouldn't be the only university, as I said, that does that. Robert, who does a lot of work in this, who just asked the question, had got a booklet from Stanford University, which is advice to their graduates on how to be employable. And they do a lot of work for their Stanford graduates. You'd think, gosh, you know, they should be able to get a job anywhere just by saying I've got a Stanford degree. But no, the Stanford University focuses a lot of attention and time and resource into helping their students become more employable, because it's an incredibly competitive world out there. So I think it's something we cannot neglect at all, but it's not the only thing that we do. Yes? Yes. Yes, we can, and we are. We are in talks with Campus Living Villages, which is a company that provides these things. The University of Auckland has often got their badge on things where they're a partner in the development, but another group like Unilodge or something is also the main shareholder. So we are looking at how we can expand that and improve the management and the ownership arrangements that we've got so that we can have a wider opportunity for students who are seeking employment, accommodation. Well, if there are no further questions, you know, I haven't got my last slide now, which was maybe it's going to come up. But the last slide just said 2 words, thank you. And there's a lot of positive things that are going on in the university. And I'm proud to be part of AUT University. Everywhere I go, people are talking about the good things, the great brand, the great opportunities, the great experience that their son or daughter or niece or nephew or somebody had at AUT. It's not a universal story, of course. There are things that we could do better. But it's a pervasive story that is really shaking up the university sector, not just in Auckland, but in New Zealand and beyond. When I've been to Australia, people talk about what they've heard about AUT. Now, that's got nothing to do with me as the Vice-Chancellor. I just am lucky enough to be here at a time where we have so many people doing so many amazing things to make this university better, to lift our profile and our reputation, to increase our expertise, and to make the student experience of higher learning something that is exceptional and takes them out as outstanding graduates. So thank you, everybody, for what part you play in that. And we all play completely different parts, but they come together to make a great unity. Thank you.